Company of Heroes remains one of my all-time favourite World War II RTS titles. Actually, I think it's probably my all-time favourite. I have literally sat and played on that game for hours and hours, and I have completed the campaign numerous times. And despite its limitations, because, let's admit it, it's not exactly perfect, I still love this game today, and in varying degrees I also love the rest of the series as well. So when I heard that Company of Heroes 3 was coming out with an alpha build available and the chance to send feedback, I knew that I was absolutely going to have to be a part of it. And having spent hours on this already, I have a lot of feedback, some of it positive, and with some constructive criticism thrown in there too. So I'll start with a disclaimer. This is an alpha build. It doesn't run at all well on my 4K monitors, and to be fair, it doesn't run at all well in 1080p, but that is not the focus of this review. I can say it immediately looks and feels just like the original Company of Heroes and less like Company of Heroes 2, and that, in my humble opinion, is a great thing. So graphically, I wouldn't expect too much enhancement over what we've had previously, but as I still like the look and feel of the original, I think that any improvement at all, however small, will be perfectly acceptable to the vast majority of players. So first of all, what do I like about the Company of Heroes 3 Alpha that I've spent a few hours on already? Well, let's start with the obvious. First of all, I absolutely love the fact that there is going to be a Company of Heroes 3. I really didn't think it was ever going to happen. In all honesty, there is a lot that I like about the Alpha. I also really like how it feels just like Company of Heroes 2, which, as I've said, in my humble opinion, is the best of the series by far. So the fact that Company of Heroes 2 didn't really strike the same chord that Company of Heroes the original did, I think has been taken note. The Mediterranean setting works so well and it looks so good, and the introduction of a tactical map element similar to Total War, for example, I think is a fantastic idea, and it adds that grand strategy feel that really works in this game and has, although I didn't know it at the time, been sadly lacking from the original. I really like how the campaign map looks, and I love how it appears to be working with deployments at secured harbours and the ability to provide support from any naval units close to shore. And what is especially prevalent is that the campaign is no longer linear. This is really important. You can attack and defend as you see fit, where you place priority, which means that the campaign is going to be full of endless possibilities. No two playthroughs will be the same, and with the ability of taking airports and then having air, land and sea options available to you, the possibilities in every combat scenario really are going to be endless. I also think it's a massive plus that we can provide additional support units, or attachments as they're called in Company of Heroes 3. On the ground for any combat arena, well-positioned units can be called in to supplement your attacking force, and the ability to mix and match with allied units and not have to stick with just American or just British is something that is possibly overlooked, but it adds a lot to the fidelity of a World War II campaign, because that is how World War II was won. This is further compounded, in my opinion, with company detachment options, which I've mentioned loosely. These units can be reinforced, upgraded to perform specific roles, and there are various options available to the units on the map as well, like placing defences and disrupting enemy supply lines. Equally, the variety of units available appear to have increased as well. I assume we have only been shown a small subset of the full units that will be made available, and I am already impressed with what I am seeing, with both the Ally units and the Axis units as well, and Relic have already confirmed that Company of Heroes 3 will have more factions at release than any other title. I'm hoping we see some dedicated Scots and maybe some Indian factions added as well. I also love the new look and feel of the combat maps themselves. The location and the details are sublime, and I especially appreciate the vertical aspect and uphill struggles that we can now expect to enjoy. The introduction of small villages with close-quarter battles playing out from house to house and what appears to be even more realistic levels of destruction just ramp up the intensity of every fight. I especially like the fact that HQs can be set up in captured buildings without a default starting location and base provided for you. When you combine that with units landing at the harbour and having to work their way up to the front line before being able to get into combat, all adds to the realism. I even like the devastating strafing attacks that I get saturated by. I do hope there will be a hardcore mode allowing us to turn off all of the visual indicators with the exception of flares that we or the enemy have set ourselves, but I honestly think that the fact that strafing fighter jets warning you in advance where they're going to attack is stretching the expectations of fair play a little bit too far. I am pretty sure, although correct me if I'm wrong, the Luftwaffe would have been slightly less accommodating during the war. The ability to clear out buildings with grenades, known as breach and clear, is a massive inclusion to the game. I think it might well be my most favourite aspect of the alpha. This one change alone is enough to make me feel considerably more engaged in the battle, and whilst throwing grenades in a building was available before, this just seems to work so much better and make so much more sense, and my god does it look good. It stops that sort of frustrating block that used to be placed upon you where you just simply cannot get past a building because it's too well defended. Now we can push in, we can put some smoke down, we can push units up, we can provide suppressing fire, and we can breach and clear that building and take it for ourselves. That is a fantastic inclusion. I will be honest, I haven't seen the enemy reciprocate. I haven't seen them do that to us, but I am hoping that that is something that might well appear in the full release. Having said all of these positive things, I do think there are some things that need to be looked at, some things that need to be fixed, and possibly some things that need to be considered in the future. Straight off the bat, there are a few things which irritated me about the original games that I hoped would have immediately been resolved, and it appears that they actually haven't been looked at all. Personally, I always felt that the zoom out needed to zoom out just a little bit further, and I still do. It feels a little bit like my face is being pressed into the ground, whereas I'd like to sort of scroll back just another few feet at least and just be able to see the combat arena in all its glory. Still, the game forces us to use the arrow keys to scan across the map. These keybinds need to be editable at the very least. I would like personally to have a WASD set up and a personal selection of hotkeys that I dictate and control. AI intelligence, or lack thereof, seems to still be a problem. For example, they never take cover automatically. Relic have said that pathfinding has been vastly improved, but I'll be honest, when I ask a unit to attack a location and they start taking enemy fire en route, they really should stop and take some cover automatically, unless of course they've been instructed not to engage the enemy and to keep moving at all costs. Equally, their movement is still way too bunched up. If I send more than one unit together, it's a little bit like watching a bunch of 6-year-olds playing football. And whilst I do like my support units to run their asses off like Billio in order to get to the centre of the action where they're needed, I also feel that the overall pace and movement in Company of Heroes could be improved considerably. If they added maybe a little bit of self-preservation and caution to movement, maybe even the option for a march option instead of an all-out leg it at all times, as I'm pretty darn sure that military units during World War II did not run everywhere. For one thing, they would have been exhausted by the time they reached the objective and probably less capable of fighting. It's an area that I think definitely deserves a bit more thought, and I've got some further ideas on that in a minute. A new opportunity also presents itself in the game, something that would not have been possible until now. I would like to see the ability for us to be able to enter and attack a map from more than one starting location. Now, obviously, not all maps would have this option. Cliff attacks, for example, would only be accessible from the bottom and possibly even from just one side. But if there was a way for us to enter the map from a different side, or perhaps from the top of the cliffs, then this would add huge emphasis on positioning on the tactical map itself. Now, previously this wouldn't have made any sense, but now that we have this additional layer of control, I think this is something that should be definitely considered, and if possible, I would love to see it in the game. Now, obviously, there's a large proportion of players who will want to see not only solo, but co-op skirmish modes, as online multiplayer is a much needed thing, for many at least. To be honest, for me, it always felt like who could produce the most amount of units fastest, and less of a tactical battle experience. So I tended not to play the multiplayer side of things. For me, it's the pace. The pace is played at far too high a tempo, and it just feels completely unrealistic. What would be exceptional is a co-op campaign mode. Now, I might be asking a lot by saying that, but I'm pretty damn sure that 99% of you out there would love to experience that as well. There is no mention of it, so I'm not expecting it, but my gosh, that is something that I feel would be insanely fun and endlessly immersive. There's a new feature. It's called Tactical Pause option. Now, I've already touched on this loosely a minute ago, but it's something that I kept trying to experience, but somehow, to me at least, it felt like cheating. The ability in the heat of battle to say, oh, everybody, could you just stop for a minute whilst I figure out the best way to circumnavigate your defensive? That just seems a little bit odd. I don't imagine we're going to get to see that in multiplayer mode. So the fact that they've introduced it at all, in my opinion, only further proves the fact that the pace of this game is a little bit too high. Let's introduce some new content. Let's introduce unit stamina, with fresh units getting a fighting bonus and tired units being easier to pin down. That combined with a little bit of extra AI, and you take a bit of cover, you could have some really long, drawn-out, tactically led battles. And I think that's something that would really enhance Company of Heroes 3. At the moment, there appears to be no suggestion that that's going to be a thing, but my god, if I could change one thing, it would be that. That, I think, could really change the whole aspect of the game. In addition to what I've just said, let's not have unlimited ammo. I mean, seriously, let's have some more realism added to the game. And whilst I do want to see the medics dragging people out of the battle back to a safe location, formed into a new unit and sent back in, let's have some degree of progression in these battles and allow a bit of ebb and flow to occur. We push and we take a location, then we should hold that location until reinforcements arrive, and then we can continue the push. Let's have the enemy form a counterattack and see if they can push us back again, thereby taking the ground that we just gained. I'd love to see this, but at the moment, with the high tempo of the game, it just doesn't feel like that tactical element is going to be possible. Now, I like the maps. I mean, I really like the maps very much indeed, but I would definitely like to see some bigger maps. Maybe they are already coming, but to have some massive, hard-fought areas, I think is going to be essential to get that big battle feel. The Battle of the Bulge. I mean, there are battles that will never get mentioned because they were small, but I bet you they were intense. It's the big battles, though, that really stamp and really last for a long period of time. They really mean something to people. Now, obviously, we've always had modding options in previous games, and with 8 versus 8 sized maps in the Company of Heroes and Company of Heroes 2 era, there is a very good chance that we will see them arrive here. But I just wanted to say it out loud so that they definitely hear us and ensure that it doesn't get forgotten. So there's a couple of other numerous changes that I wanted to reel off to you at this point. I think the inclusion of a real-time day and night cycle would really charge the levels of realism to the absolute stratosphere. Beyond that even, the fact that attacking at day and or night time would have significant tactical advantages or disadvantages, I think is another area that should be investigated. If they could just reduce the pace of the game and allow things to be a little bit more realistic with limited ammo resources, for example, then yeah, I think this game could be sensational. But what I am asking for here are quite significant changes to the Company of Heroes ethos. But they did ask us to provide feedback, and this is what I personally would like to see. I'd also think that the way units exit buildings needs work. I don't think it's ever worked particularly well, and I'm still not impressed with the way it works now. They just seem to be, well, they don't seem to have any care for their own well-being. They'll happily just walk out in front of a machine gun in order to exit a building, despite the fact that you've asked them to exit the other side of the building. It's an area that needs work, I think, as is, and this is my final point for this particular video, the camera. I think it just needs a lot more work. When you zoom in, the speed at which the camera moves around the map needs to be reduced. Personally, I think we need adjustable controls here so that we can tweak things to our own liking. I want the speed that the camera moves around to be adjustable at fully zoomed out, which needs to be increased, as I've already mentioned. But also when we zoom in, I think we need to have another control there that says how slow we want the camera to move around whilst we're fully zoomed in. That way we'll have complete control, and whether we're zoomed all the way out or all the way in, we'll have good camera control. And this game, although it's in alpha and it runs like a bag of dirt, it already has incredible graphical and animated experiences, visceral in many ways. But we want to get up close and watch these battles unfold in great detail, and having good camera control is at the forefront of that being possible. So guys, these are my thoughts and opinions on the alpha. And finally, I'd just like to say thank you so much to Relic, not only for putting the time and effort into making a Company of Heroes 3 game, but by providing an alpha to the community so that we can get a little taster of what's to come. This game is already on my wish list. I would pre-order this in an instant. I cannot wait to get access to the beta, and I cannot wait to see how this game unfolds. I would love them to watch this video and take on board my recommendations, but at the end of the day, I'm just one person. What matters so much more is what you think. So please do let me know in the comment section if you agree with any of my points, if you disagree with any of my points. Maybe you have some suggestions and ideas of your own that you'd love to see thrown into the game. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves until next time. Bye.